Yes, folks, it's Thursday. It's a stressful day, 2 p.m. Pacific. I'm Fred McMurray, and thankfully this must be... Well, Kristin, hi.
Hi.
Gotcha. This is
Happy.
a bit of a change. I know what you were expecting, but we have birthday greetings today.
We do? You mean aside from your belated birthday,
I
Fred?
have no birthdays. I'm just older than Methuselah. So, no. One of our sponsors and the first guest that we ever had on the show, my partner Michelle Rempel's birthday is today. So we wanted to say happy birthday to her.
Happy birthday. Wow, does that mean you guys have the same astrological sign?
Yes, we're both Leos.
I'm curious how that works out, but we'll go into that another time.
Yeah, especially with the mood I'm in today. So now I'll send you. To Karen, and you guys can chat about word on the street.
Okay, that sounds great. And welcome to Pillars of Franchising, yet another episode where we look to educate and entertain at the same time about all things franchising. And today, Karen, word on the street is funding.
Yes.
Yeah. Difficult funding. I found a great article today in Entrepreneur Magazine, and I'll say great only in that it held my interest, not great in that the topic necessarily. But the topic is talking a lot about women, people of color, franchisees under 30 really struggling to get funding to open these franchise systems.
I know. I hear this a lot. Where people they feel like they had it all together. They feel like they had it all in place, and then they get rejected.
Yeah, and they were talking about, the good news is, right, although all of those things have happened, it actually caught the attention of the IFA. So International Franchise Association has now a foundation where not only are they helping, but I want to also give a shout out to Yum Brands. That franchise system has also helped start working with University of Louisville and Howard University, and I'm sure Palm Beach Atlantic, one of our favorite places, also has some of this. But it's to help people get more educated in how do you talk to a banker, right? What are some of the things when you walk in and you're applying for a loan that you need to have ready, that you need to ask? And we've talked before on the show that not all banks are really business banks. Not all banks are franchise banks, right?
Absolutely.
Now, you told me you had a situation like this. Would you like to share that with us?
I would love to. We were talking about this article and how, how I'd said I had personal experience when I was in my late 20s. My husband and I went in to take out a loan, and he came in. He was just a little bit he was coming from a work site. And we walk in, and the banker said to us immediately, we're really picky to whom we give loans to. And so, of course, she didn't know how spunky I was, and proceeded to talk to her about that and give her an apology. But that was one person who actually, said it out loud. How many times do you know that someone's thinking that, but they're not saying it?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's really interesting because one of the Mabea, I'm going to pronounce his name, and I hope that's right. Totally talented guy, educated, speaks 6 different languages, and he said, the one thing I figured out is I need to learn how to speak the 7th language, which is banker. And he struggled for a while to be able to get funding for his franchise. And the franchisors determined from Chuckers, and they are Canadian based from what I gather, they have also started coaching their prospective franchisees on how to go and talk to a banker. So a lot of people, I mean, the first thing you think about, right, is, well, what about getting the money to start my business, right? Everybody wants to be their own business person. Everybody wants to be their own boss. But one of the biggest points of entry is money.
Right. I love the talk like a banker, the seventh language. Yeah, right, because it's so true. Sometimes you feel like you're speaking in a different language. And you had mentioned that not all banks are also set up for franchising. So to me, this is the key thing, that it's not, yes, we're going in, we're trying to get loans. And if someone's not kind of trying to adapt to us, and as we adapt to them, they might not be a good fit.
Well, sure. And, it was something as simple as saying to the banker, well, what do I need to get qualified for this? And some people just don't ask. And it's, a couple of things that we know you have to have ready. And I'm running into this with one of my clients now, is a credit score, right? You have to have a good credit score. We've mentioned that before. Bankruptcy is a taboo, unfortunately, for a lot of people. And you may be able to find some bankers, but you're going to find a lot of lenders who just say, oh, you have a bankruptcy in your past? Sorry, can't do it. And so that's very frustrating. You have to really look hard for somebody who is willing to take that chance. And some of the questions commonly asked that you need to think about if you're looking at buying a franchise or starting a business is, do you have your business plan ready? You want to provide that to your bank. You need to make sure you have cash flow statements, again, ready for the bank when you go. And some of the common things, aside from your credit score, that they may ask you is, where do you see your business in terms of the next 5 years? Because they want to make sure that you have a vision, and hopefully within your business plan, you go out 5 years so you can say, here's my vision, and here are the numbers to back it up, right?
Exactly. And I think many times people don't think about that. They just think about that probably that first year. Like, okay, we need to have this plan for the first year, the second year, and they need to think about long term, right? They have enough funds and vision to last through that long term, not 5 years. I mean, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to say that if you are working with a franchisor and or a broker, certainly we at Pillars of Franchising can assist with that as well. But putting together those break-evens, your statement of cash flows, and your business plan are something that a lot of people will help you with. And so make sure that you reach out, use a trusted resource, contact us at Pillars of Franchising if you're not sure where to start. We have all those things as resources we can help you with, as well as making sure that we find that right brand that not only you can get qualified for, but that will give you the lifestyle that you're looking for moving forward. So with that, I think we have a great show on tap. Fred, would you like to switch us over? Hi, Tony.
How are you?
Right?
I was going to say, listening to the conversation, if seventh language is banking, the eighth language might as well be landlords or real estate brokers. So if you learn that one, let me know as well.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to get into exactly why you say that. Ray, would you like to introduce our guest to all of our listeners?
We have a great guest today, and he is the CEO of Stretch Zone. Okay, and I find that interesting because I think I saw a Stretch Zone in Naperville. Do you have one in Naperville, Illinois? Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the few we have in Chicago. Yep.
Yeah, excellent. I think our audience needs to hear what is Stretch Zone. It sounds like an interesting concept. It certainly grabbed my attention when I saw it on the storefront.
Well, for us, it's no sweat exercise, and we were talking beforehand, and so Stretch Zone essentially is practitioner-assisted stretching. We utilize a patented stabilization system and strapping system, and combine that with our proprietary methodology and stretching methodology. We're essentially able to give a more effective and efficient stretch while the client doesn't have to do any work at all. And so essentially, clients come in, lay on a comfortable table, we do all the work, you get all the benefits, and that it's really that simple. And so it's been quite the journey over the past few years, and getting up to 200 plus stores, and still growing at the pace that we are, about 2 a week. We're staying busy, that's for sure.
Wow. Well, I love yoga, but the fact that I watched a video on YouTube of one of your facilities and what it was like, how you get on the table and they strap you down, right, so you don't fall. The idea of somebody else doing all that work for me and me getting the benefit, I was like, this is awesome. I don't even have to break a sweat.
It's funny because people that come in, they either don't know how to stretch, which is a large part. They don't know what to do properly, and the strapping system acts as an extra pair of hands, and so it allows you to be comfortable on the table and really leverage and just get a more efficient stretch. But large people come in that don't know how to stretch, and then there's another big majority of people that come in that do know how to stretch but are too lazy to stretch, which is me and a lot of other people that come in the door. And so when we give the ability, I think that the most impactful thing, at least from my experience with Stretch Zone, is just the difference that stretching makes and the Stretch Zone method makes on people's lives. And I think especially those that don't stretch at all, people don't realize the impact it can have on their day-to-day life. And it's just from the basic of goals of literally just being able to put your socks on in the morning easier, sleeping better through the night, to the more athletic goals, I would say, of being able to feel better playing around the golf or playing with grandkids, whatever it might be. And so being able to kind of support that wide array of goals and to be able to create programs around that has been pretty impactful in the communities that we serve.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that I found interesting as I was watching this video is, in doing some reading about it, is it talked about how this isn't necessarily just for athletes. It's not necessarily just for injuries, right? Can you tell us a little bit about who Stretch Zone is targeting, looking for in terms of your patients or clients?
We call them clients, and so essentially, it's really for everyone. And I think everyone who first gets exposed to the brand, even when I first got exposed to the brand, we had about 5 locations. Immediately I thought for those weekend warriors, for the athletes, this is great for preventative and recovery. And the answer is yes. But really where it's making a huge difference are really those that are 45 and up. Demographically speaking, there's about the male-female split about 50-50, give or take 1 to 2 percentage points, which is really a testament to, the service that was created by our founder, Jordan Gold, and really the system, to be able to apply those benefits across such a wide variety of people. And again, it goes back to, I think, yes, the goal is always being able to run a quicker 40, or maybe you're an aspiring collegiate athlete, but how impactful is it if it's literally, I want to wake up without feeling aches and pains in my lower back? What value do you put behind that? And that's something that we recognized early on and said, hey, listen, let's not just, pigeonhole ourselves and put us in a niche of fitness. Let's make sure that we're servicing the entire array of clients that are walking through the door looking for the service. And that's really why we always try to align ourselves with, we're a wellness product, we're a lifestyle service. And ultimately, that's how we've been able to kind of create this whole new, and be the pioneers of this whole new vertical, which is now stretching. So yes, it's not just athletes.
Let me ask you this. I'm a little on the other side of 45. This is just a little bit. So how does that affect my generation? So, because I wake up in the morning and it's
one of the most rewarding things, for at least for me as a leader of the organization, our team, is we always talk about the direct impact it makes on individuals' lives, right? And so Ray, I know you pushing 50, it definitely is something that you could utilize, but ultimately, for the older generation, it really boils down to, hey, doing what you love longer, or doing what you once loved to do, putting that back into the routine, and so you talk about the direct impact of that, right? So Ray, you might love to play golf or pickleball or hang out with your grandkids or go fish or whatever, is go on walks, and so yes, you can do that, but then the indirect impact, which is most rewarding in my mind, is maybe that is spending more active time with your family members, or maybe that is spending more active time with your friends or whoever it might be, and that's kind of the, there's so much purposefulness behind the service itself, to where, franchisees, yes, it is a great business model, and the unit level economics are great, but they can feel good, when they go to bed at night, and they can feel good knowing that they're making a direct impact and a positive impact in their communities.
Absolutely.
Tony, I was reading that really you kind of fit into the health and fitness industry, and you kind of indicated that, but it's very niche, right? I mean, it's not a yoga studio, it's not a fitness center. Where do you see you guys fitting into there, and where would you position one of your locations even?
I would honestly say that we're a lifestyle service, and when I say lifestyle, and that was one of the most challenging components. We talk about the lifespan of Stretch Zone from the first store of 2015 to 200 plus now. Nobody knew what stretching was, and a large part, and that's why we offer the first stretch free. Even to this day across the country, for any new person who wants to try us out, the first stretch is free, because we understand that you have to educate the consumer. It's not necessarily just about what stretching is, but what Stretch Zone is and the difference it can make, which is why we always kind of say, like, hey, don't take our word for it, try it out for yourself. But the niche and us being the pioneers in kind of this stretching vertical, it was challenging at first, just because people want to label you as fitness, or they want to label you as massage, and when you get down to the nuts and bolts, we talk about leasing and stuff like that. When we were opening up stores, that created some challenges in some municipalities, because the municipalities think it's something as simple as a business license. Business license, they want to tag you as massage. Well, no, we're not massage. You don't want to be tagged as massage, because then there's other red tape that's associated with that, and so that was always a challenge. But now that there's just been more popularity of the stretching industry as a whole, and obviously the success that we've had, it's been a little easier to help others understand that really this is more of a lifestyle play. Really, everyone can see the benefits for it. It's really more so for us to figure out why you're coming in and making sure that we're designing the appropriate program for you.
So where do you find your people? Obviously, we're all having staffing shortages as franchisees right now. Do you do some training for them? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. So labor challenges are across the board, and that's through, I was did a conversation with Stan Friedman the other day on a podcast, and we were talking about this, and some of the labor challenges are obviously affecting other brands more so than others. And for us, we've always had two major differentiators as a brand. First of which is the patented traffic system, which talked about. The second of which is our Stretch Zone training program, because Jordan, our partner and founder, started this so long ago, and this is been a product that's been developed since 1999 when we first started our grandfather. We actually are the only ones with a nationally recognized stretch training program, which does a few things for us internally, which means that national insurers recognize it, which mitigates liability insurance for franchisees. Also, what it does is allow the scalability that you want in any service, so whether you're getting stretched in Anchorage, Alaska, or Fort Lauderdale, or New York, or wherever, you get the same quality of service. And the last thing, most importantly, is what you just addressed, is that since we are the certifying body, it makes finding labor that much easier, because I don't necessarily need you to have particular certification to come on board. If you pass our certification, you're going to be deemed safe and okay to work with clientele. Now, with that being said, obviously you want to find the people with appropriate backgrounds, exercise physiology, personal trainers, massage therapists, whatever it might be. But that's essentially, that's how it works for us, and that's why it hasn't been too difficult when opening all these locations to find the team members to join.
Okay, great. You did mention unit level economics being very strong, and I noticed that some of your growth has been through multi-unit expansions. So what do you find the average number of units is that your multi-unit owners hold?
It's really increasing by the day. Honestly, and most of our, and again, when Jordan and I kind of started this franchise model, and Jordan Gold's founder, we always talk about doing franchising the right way, or what we call the right way. And what that means is we always want to keep a low barrier of entry for our franchisees and keep that barrier of entry as low as possible, leverage whatever purchasing power that we have and pass that forward to the franchisee to incentivize multi-unit growth. Rather than taking rebates or stuff like that. And also, what matters to us as a franchisor are stores open. One of the cultural pieces that I firmly believe in, and I guess it's a lot different than franchising, and me being new to franchising as a whole, is, we never refer to store sold. Because quite frankly, I tell the franchisees, I think it can be a bogus metric for franchisors to lean on, because I can't, as a franchisee, I can't leverage, if I only have 50 units open, 500 sold, I can't leverage 450 sold. It doesn't matter for brand recognition, anything like that. And so that being said, we've never been pushy about forcing people to do multi-unit. We really want people to open up stores. So telling a lot of these franchisees early on, saying, listen, if you're not comfortable doing 3, I'm not going to discount the franchise fee to go ahead and give you perks or whatever, or maybe oversell you on units, which type of mark, which isn't good for the brand. So what we found over time is that people continually add more and more units, to where now the average is probably about 3 per franchisee. But what we've seen, especially in the past, through life cycle franchising, a lot of these, bigger owners are starting to even purchase more in their respective regions, or buy some other existing units to add on to their portfolio. So, we have our highest ones around 15, 17. We have a few in the 9 to 10 range, and then obviously we have a lot of the 2, 3.
Wow. And what does it take to get, first of all, what type of individual are you looking for to buy your franchise? And how much does it cost to get involved in it?
So the cost is going to range anywhere between $120,000 to $195,000, which is going to be all in. That's item 7 from the page to my lips, right? So that's the cost. As far as the candidate, I always want to preface this with, for any emerging brand out there, everyone learns it the hard way. There's nothing more important than vetting your franchisees and finding the right people that align with the culture of the organization and what you're trying to build as an organization culturally. And every emerging franchise, I remember sitting at IFA when we had 15 stores, hearing that, and it always sounds great, and you're like, yeah, and then all of a sudden, when you're growing a brand organically and things are getting tight, you're like, well, this one I'm sure my gut's wrong on this, and sometimes you learn the hard way. And so nowadays, culture is everything in our organization, and that's our priority. And so we vet them heavily a lot of times to make sure they align with our core values. One of the things that we still do are in-person discovery days, which is a little bit different than a lot of brands, but I do think that shows that someone who's willing to take the time to obviously try the service, go through the validation process, talk to franchisees, and part of this is the same with team members. I look for, good work ethic. I look for good, solid characters, and individuals. We're in a unique position because we have a low barrier of entry relative to franchising. You got a lot of first-time business owners. And so I would like to say, so it's not necessarily someone that has an incredible business acumen. It's someone who's passionate about the service, passionate about helping others, and really understands the purpose behind Stretch Zone as a business model, not necessarily just the dollar amount behind Stretch Zone as a business model.
It certainly sounds like something who, how should I say, you, as a person who's wanted to get involved in franchising, I think buying one of these, because it sounds to me like multiple units are easy. Once you start that first one, I think, and I think you said 125 to begin with. This doesn't sound bad. That sounds like something a lot of people certainly would like to get into.
Yep, absolutely.
We always joke because we have we try to keep the business model as simple as possible. Really to where we have we have fixed assets in the tables themselves. We have the team members. We don't have any kind of waste, spoilage, a ton of moving inventory besides some merch. And so for a new business owner, it is, and it's a turnkey process. You have the franchise support, you have the big brand name alongside of it, like Drew Brees and the brand ambassadorship and the board member. And so when you have all this, it is very appealing for first-time business owners. And yes, there are a lot of synergies and economies of scale for multi-unit ownership, and we try to cater to that. But I think it's, the running joke is here, we talk discovery day, is like if you're a prospect and you're leaving, you're thinking it can't be this simple. The answer is it is, and we know that, and we try to leverage that and not overcomplicate it for people. So yeah.
I didn't want to say it was a simple franchise, but you used to.
It's not offensive.
It is. And so many franchises now, even the business that Kristin and I are in, you think, how hard can it be to clean a toilet? But it's complicated. So, but this sounds really easy. It sounds like a really, really good franchise. How did you get involved in this? Because I'm reading here that you started out as a general manager. Is that correct?
Back in the day, it was kind of even a joke for us to even have titles, when we're starting up a business from scratch. And so when I first joined, so the story begins with Jordan back in 1999 when we first started with his grandfather. Jordan then worked with one-off clientele, celebrities, athletes, whoever it might be, and then he tried starting the retail model himself in 2015. I stumbled across it in 2016 when they had about 5 locations, and Jordan is obviously one of the best people, and we fit together perfectly, and he's the science behind it, and what he lacked was the business model, and we're always big on know what you don't know. And so when I came on board in 2016, and I experienced a stretch just like many of our franchisees, and I said, wow, this is something pretty incredible. I understood the intellectual property behind it, so I saw how unique it was, and as dysfunctional the business was around it, meaning like we didn't know how to price it, we didn't know how to sell it, there wasn't a website, there's tiles and hand-me-down furniture in the stores and all that lovely like startup business concept, and but regardless of that, people are still coming in and people loved it. And so I remember telling myself, I said, listen, I'm more than young enough to where we can take this kind of entrepreneurial jump. I said it obviously makes a difference, and if I'm right, this could be something pretty big. And so from 2016, Jordan and I, we had about 12 corporate stores. Didn't really start franchising until 2017. And then obviously from there to here, about 5.5 years of franchising, we're at 209, and 10 and 11 open up next week. So it's been it's been quite the journey, and throw COVID in there for the mix, and then quite the tale.
That's really good growth. I think right now we want to keep the lights on, so Fred says we need to do a commercial.
All right, we'll be right back with more Palooza Franchising after this.
Hey, franchise owners, how's your local marketing? Do you feel like you could use some help keeping up with your social media posts and comments and reviews? Do you wonder if you could be doing more to attract local customers? Are you able to identify new move-ins to your local area? At Westvine, we help franchisees like you reach more local customers through digital marketing. With daily monitoring, creative content, and ad placement, and customer data intelligence, we'll get your business in front of the people who want your products or services. We also work with franchisors who need an agency to handle the digital marketing for all of their locations. If you're ready to reach more local customers, give us a call at 805-265-5440 or visit us at westvine.com. That's 805-265-5440 or westvine.com.
And welcome back. We have Laura List joining us with Tony Zaccario. I'm sorry, I did say that right. Zaccario.
It's close enough.
Okay.
Been called worse,
Well, I have to clap it out. Sometimes it's like hooked on phonics, right? I'm clapping it out. So my apologies if I slayed that the wrong way. But so Laura, I know you're dying from a legal perspective. We wanted to start talking about item 7, right?
Sure. Yeah, I know that, for your background, I represent both franchisors as well as franchisees. So I sit and I see both sides. It's sort of like an attorney who represents both employees as well as management. There's not a lot of us who do both sides, but I think that's part of what gives us a lot of comfort when we work with our clients either way. You were mentioning, you're describing how, it's a relatively affordable franchise, right? Like earlier, it was last week, I had a different franchise, it was going to cost $3 million, right? This is, is the opposite end of the spectrum, right? How has it been for your franchisees about finding those smaller footprint spaces? You know, I wonder, sometimes the landlords like to do bigger spaces, right? Do they try and get you guys into bigger spaces ever?
It's a challenge, and that was one thing that was shocking. Everyone kind of thought, or at least we did, during COVID, that the retail space you'd gain a lot of leverage from the tenant side, and the exact opposite. I mean, it's been Also, for the record, Laura, I'm glad that I read my item 7 exactly as it is, knowing that you were on the
I did not go through item 7. I do think I actually represent one of your franchisees, but I would have to go back and check because it's been a while. Go ahead.
That's great. So yeah, we can quote that later on. But anyway, the footprint and the real estate, it's one of our biggest challenges because our footprint is only 1,000 square feet, empty shell, shoebox shape, and what's frustrating is that's small potatoes for some of these big landlords or big REITs or whatever it might be, and I mean it literally gets to the point to where franchisees are begging for the landlords to literally take their. I mean, I remember a specific circumstance where we had a franchisee executed lease, everything already sent back, check sent back to him. It took him 3.5 weeks to cash the check to get the keys over, and you're sitting there saying like it's just madness. It's definitely a frustrating piece.
Tony, do you help them with your franchisees with site selection because of some of these issues?
We've always taken the position of more so as we're going to approve the site. We obviously will give the appropriate demographics and for that you submit, but we're going to approve or disapprove a location. We try not to blur the lines too much with regards to we're happy to hop on the call and saying listen, these are the typical sites, but we try not to blur the lines too much of directing a franchisee and saying hey you should take this location. So kind of what we do. And this is one of those gray areas. And I don't know if I should have, Laura, with you on here, I should probably have my counsel on here. But anyway, it is just being honest. It's one of those gray areas. You talked about financing before from the banking system. For us, when we have a low barrier of entry, we have people that are new to business. People have no idea how a lease functions or commercial lease functions. And sometimes landlords are very malicious. They do try to take advantage of small business because they know that. And so our biggest piece of advice is honestly, we say, listen, there's a lot of things that attorneys are great for, but especially when it comes to the commercial real estate and as far as lease negotiation. And I think what a lot of franchisees don't realize is that there's a lot that can be negotiated in a lease, and a lot of it is a personal decision as far as what's most important to them. And what I mean by that is we try to educate them with outside people and outside counsel or outside experts on real estate themselves so that they can learn about things like personal guarantee, TI, abated versus free rent, and all these other different components of it to where landlords get a little slick with it, term of the lease as well. And so we do try to educate them just to understand the components, but when it comes down to the actual negotiation, I do believe this, it is a personal choice. Some franchisees that are hell-bent on getting rid of a personal guarantee or having a rolling PG or stuff like that. I have others that say, I don't care at all, I just want all TI paid for and all build out, and I want as much free rent as possible on a lower term, and that's up to them. And we take more of an approach of we're going to improve the site and just help educate the franchisee.
I think that's actually, you want to give them enough rope, right? Not enough to hang themselves, but you want to let them be able to call the shots. As a contrasting one, I have one that is in the massage space that I'm helping. They signed their franchise agreement. They're doing site selection. Franchisor is very hands-on. To the point that they will not permit a lease that is less than 10 years, right? Not even 2 5s, like the 5 and a 5. They will truly, we actually tried to negotiate it when we were reviewing the franchise agreement because it was also in the franchise agreement that you had to do it that way. And so there is a lot of variability out there, I would just say. And so, having that flexibility from you guys is actually, I think, a benefit. So long as the franchisee is getting, a knowledgeable real estate broker, they're getting, in their own market, someone who can tell them, okay, yeah, this is market or this is not. Like I also practice in Denver. I lived out there for about a decade. And, the things that you just cannot ask for in that market are very different than where I currently live in the Chicago area. In Chicago, I'll propose whatever changes I want, basically. Whereas in Denver, they'll just laugh at you. They're like, we haven't accepted, no guarantee or even a rolling guarantee since, the recession ended. It just hasn't happened. So it really is something to think about, market by market too. I think with the lower cost of entry, are a lot of your franchisees, are they pursuing financing? Like, are they pursuing SBA loans, or are they more financing?
Most of them have liquidity or a simple line of credit because there's such a low barrier of entry for those. So luckily, we don't have those hurdles to overcome. So it's not much of a headache for us. But again, we do our best to educate them on the different options that they do have, and that's why we regularly have we have monthly calls with the system-wide calls, and we have probably weekly different kind of support topic calls, and at the FAC's request, we'll bring in an outside expert so that they can speak a little more freely than we will to go ahead and kind of comment on that, and just to educate the franchisees, because we do get a lot of new business owners for sure.
For sure. Yeah, that's really interesting. What's the market like out there for franchisees? How are they doing with getting open? Is it staying on track? Are they behind? Is COVID still?
Yeah, right now we're averaging just under 120 days from franchise agreement to opening. And so one of the beauties of our business is, again, it's simple. You literally get shipped a store in a box where your tables, your furniture, your acrylics come in there. And so the two limiting factors are, if you have an expensive build out, it might delay the permitting and you have to go through the cities. But for us, like if I find, and a lot of these times these kind of long shoebox shaped spaces of 1,000 square feet is all I need is paint, flooring. We put decals. Other than that, flop it and run with it, which is great, especially for these new business owners who maybe are outlaying a lot of capital for them. Initially, they're able to kind of start that process of hopefully recouping it immediately and as soon as possible. And so it's been just under that. But at the same time, as I have some horror story just with landlords and leasing or permitting issue, just taking. Eon's HVAC units are apparently a shortage of them throughout the country.
You gotta be careful. Yeah, not even the shortage, but just knowing, like, that's another big lease topic, and it's like, sometimes I say to these guys, I could get on here and I could do not like a whole session, because everybody wouldn't listen to the podcast,
it makes total sense that a franchisee pays for capital improvement of the landlord. In my opinion, but
it makes sense that they pay for it when they get the benefit, right? Like if they're getting a new space, is that a joke? I can't tell. Right?
Yeah, it's a joke. It's like can you take? It's like my joke with the franchisee. It's like, guys, because people are like, well, does that make sense that we have to pay? I go, listen. It's a capital improvement unless you can take that HVAC with you when that lease is over.
Exactly.
but these landlords expect it.
Exactly. No, and it is something where it's very hard to negotiate that, because the landlords know how expensive HVAC is, which for anyone listening who does not know, even on a smaller footprint space like what Stretch Zone does, I wouldn't be surprised if a new HVAC unit was going to run you $10,000.
Wow.
And so it is not an insignificant line item. When your whole estimate, right, is not very high, suddenly, HVAC is really going to spike you up there. So it is something to think about, much less if you're on a larger concept, where you need a lot of ventilation, like a nail salon or something. Those need extra ventilation. Those can really, And Kristin, did you have a question?
Yeah, so Tony, I know we talked about so many of your franchisees being multi-unit owners, but for people listening who think that this, not only is this an extremely affordable model, but because it's a lifestyle brand, there's so many things that are interesting about it to me. How involved do you expect your franchisees to be in the business, especially their first one? Because not everybody is trained and able to do stretching.
Yeah. So we don't require owner operators like a lot of brands do, and what we want is we want active owners. I'm big on you can work on the business without being in the business, and so at the same time, but now I hate the terminology that franchising uses of semi-absentee. And the reason why I say that for anyone listening is because it's just kind of the connotation that you're absent-minded of the business. But really, what I'm trying to say is listen, it is something to where it's going to require a few hours, but at the same time, you don't need to be in the space. It should run efficiently by itself because you don't have that much really to do besides you're managing people and you're leading people, which is important. But other than that, it's very, very simple. So for those that are considering, and a lot of our franchisees that do have just one or two or even up to three, they still do have a full-time job elsewhere, and they do have other business ventures elsewhere. So it's not necessarily one of those things where all of our franchisees, this is all that they do. And honestly, there's probably only about 15% of them that this is all they do. For everyone else, so that's a great question.
Excellent. So for those of you out there who just want to get out of the daily grind, or you're looking for somewhere else to put your money that can work for you, especially today, probably bigger returns in the stock market.
That's not saying much. Let's not too low.
Well, today it's not for sure, right? But Tony, it's been so fantastic having you on, and I'm super excited to know that we have Stretch Zone here in Chicago, because I really want to go and check that out. And we will have all of your information online for you at pillarsoffranchising.com. But tell our listeners, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
First of all, if you want to learn more about the brand, go to stretchzone.com, and obviously from the Fran Dev side, go to our franchising page and learn more about what it's like to be a franchisee and the life of a franchisee, and more about the investment in Lovely Item 7. So they're talking about Laura. For those that want to experience it firsthand, go on the website, find a location nearest you, and try the free stretch. And for me personally, LinkedIn is probably the best way to get a hold of me. And are all of you guys based out of Chicago?
No, just three of us.
We're actually going to be doing a Drew Brees signed football giveaway from every one of the stores to start off the month of September.
I'm a big Saints fan, so this personally appeals to me.
You heard it here first. So that is something that we are going to run through the month of September for our Chicago-based stores. Because him and his group just opened up a location in Glenview, and so he's been rapidly growing, and so he's putting a little touch on there. So there's a little more incentive for you guys to get on in.
Well, and I have to say I can't count because there are four of us online right now from Chicago. So Jerry's not here today. He's the only one from the cornfields of Iowa. But yeah, that's super exciting. I would love to do that, and I'm definitely want to check out the model. Thank you so much for your time, and I wish you all the luck in the world with what you guys have going on. And the growth is absolutely amazing, especially as you said, considering COVID. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tony.
Have a good one, guys. Have a good one, guys.
As usual, thank you for joining Pillars of Franchising. We appreciate every single one of you. A shout out to our sponsors, the Titus Center for Franchising at Palm Beach Atlantic University. You can find them on the college's website. Also, Franchise Show 247, which can be found at franchiseshow247.com. And we couldn't do without our sponsors, and we appreciate their support. Don't forget, we love to have call-in guests. Our number to call in is 323-580-5755. That is 323-580-5755. If you have questions for our guest or for any of our Million Dollar mentors, we welcome you to call in at any time on the show. We will do our very best to answer your calls. Stay tuned. More coming up.
Hey.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. I love all this talk. We're talking about so many different things and all the different nuances, with franchising. And Tony, I'm definitely gonna come by and do Stretch Zone. I'm interested in doing something new.
Yeah, it's like where's the closest one? Now Glenview, and now this football thing. And honestly, so I'll probably like my skin will start burning and I'll burst into flames. But I'm really not a Bears fan for living in Chicago.
Oh, don't say that to me.
So for me, like, I think it's cool they're going to give away a Saints football. It doesn't have to be a Bears football in Chicago. And we probably just lost all of our Chicago listeners going, oh my God, I can't.
But I am go Bears, bear down. So I'll be the side for that. And I've already looked it up. I think there's one in Willowbrook, which I'm near, so I'm going to be going to that one. So
awesome. Well, we might. Who knows? We might have to go into business and buy one of these because it looks like it's a lot of fun.
Oh, absolutely.
So what do you have for us today?
Really want to talk about when you even think about today. So we've been talking about contracts. We've been talking about like leases. We were talking even about getting loans. All the different things that are required when we're franchises. And so really just wanted to talk about when's a good time to really get advice. When's a good time to have a mentor?
Yeah.
And kind of what does that look like? I thought it'd be really good because so many times as franchises or prospective franchises, we get so caught up in the ideas and just kind of moving through the process. And it's not until something goes wrong that then we're like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I need to get some advice here. And sometimes if we could find out or think about this beforehand, being more proactive ahead of time, it's a good idea because it can save us from a lot of mistakes.
Well, and as a franchisee myself, 16 years, I'm kind of in this, every now and then you go through these ebbs and flows, right? And you get in a rut. And sometimes the business kind of runs itself and everything is status quo. And then there are times that you really want to kick it into high gear. And so, are those good times to look for a mentor?
Yeah, I think there's different points. And you're right. I think, when you even talked about in a rut, many times what happens in franchising, and I saw this, and it's a good thing. We have other franchisees. So we're getting advice from our franchisor. We talk to other franchisees. And that can be, you're getting limited information. So the great thing about with a mentor is actually you're kind of going out and getting different ideas. So you're getting different perspectives and different ideas. Right. I think that's a good thing. And I think that it's usually pivotal times, for example, when you've been thinking about buying a franchise. Good to get that person that's more objective. They're not trying to sell you a franchise. They're not your banker, right? It's really someone that is that experienced person that you can trust, that's going to give you real feedback, and they can ask you questions, kind of challenge you, and you can also go to them when you're struggling. Or we're just trying to figure it out. And they can also give you advice on, hey, here are some pitfalls. So that's usually the first place. It's when you're thinking about a franchise and you're getting it started.
Okay.
So I think
how about the one thing that I found in our franchise is a little bit different, but we went through this where they seem to be very involved your first year, making sure that you have all the resources. And I've noticed this with some of the emerging brands too, but as you go into year 2 through 5, right, it's kind of like, okay, well, now what? Like
it's true, and I think that you get stuck, right? So and that's even in business what happens many times in all businesses, because I've worked with a lot of franchises and businesses. You always have it's like a wall. Yeah. So you kind of have this growth, and then there's a wall. It could be time, it could be a certain like sales growth, and you feel stuck. And you're like, wait, I can't get past it to get to that next level. That's a great time. Right. To really think about, okay, let me find someone, let me find a mentor, someone's experienced in this, that can ask me some questions and help me get unstuck. So that's a great time. I think another great time is when you want to buy another unit. So many times as entrepreneurs, and I've worked with a lot of people here, they're like, I want to buy something else. And so if they get people that just want to tell them what they want to hear, and there are those people. then there are also people that are mentors that will be, let me ask you a few questions, because they're objective. So that let me ask you a few questions here, because it's a nice shiny dime, right? It's shiny over there, but let's make sure this is right for you. And a lot of times it kind of helps you slow down and think about it, and it helps you get more prepared, so then you can have, if you do it, when you do it, you can actually then move a little bit faster, and it's going to be more successful.
Sure. Well, and that happens to bring an interesting point in terms of when you do expansions. And I've done 3 expansions in the last 16 years, and all of them have gone differently, right? And 2 of them happened right before COVID. And so then when you look at, or when I looked at going yet again to another, the issue becomes when you have something like COVID and you've done 2 expansions kind of back to back. Well, first of all, with COVID, all the plans went to hell in a handbasket, right? So that didn't work out.
No kidding, yeah.
And then the second thing was now you need to make sure that your market penetration in those new markets are just as strong as your original territory, so that you show that you've been able to grow. And so it can get really tricky, especially if you have something like a pandemic on your hands, and that mentor hopefully can help you be very strategic with your marketing, very strategic on where you spend your time, and kind of the cultivating the customer things that need to happen.
Exactly. And I will say, a word of advice, if you do have a mentor, listen to them as well. They're not going to be just doing the whole blah, blah, giving you all this information, but they're going to be asking you really insightful questions. So a good mentor does that, right? They ask you questions, get you thinking. And then if you ask them for advice and they give some, I mean, I can't tell you, there are a couple people where they're like, we went back and forth on should I not? And I'm like, I'm not sure about this, and really recommended maybe someone not go into a multi-unit. Well, then they came back a year later and they said, you were right, I wasn't right. Yeah, it's not like I was right, but sometimes mentors can see things that you can't. So it's really making sure you get it's that emotion and logic with buying and making sure you've got the balance of the emotion and the logic there. And that's a lot of times what the mentor can do. They can help you with that logical piece.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that becomes really, really important. I am guilty of having a little ADHD and being all about the shiny dime, right? Yeah. Look, just as I said, stretch zone. Oh my gosh, that sounds awesome. I love the concept. I love the point of entry. I love the flexibility of not having to be there all the time. And, with a lot of these brands, as he brought up, and this is again a mentor thing, right? If you're not used to hiring and building a culture and taking care of your employees, engage with somebody who is really skilled at that, because it can make or break your business very quickly, especially one that you're not working in full time.
Yes, absolutely. And there's some people that believe that feel very strongly that they want to have a mentor, not just at those, those pivotal times. But they have always. And so I have, a couple of people that, a couple business owners where they actually had a mentor at the beginning, and they just keep them, and they'll do quarterly check-ins. So it's more of like a consistent way of approaching. And so what they did help them, one, when they were ready to sell, they didn't have to go to someone, because sometimes people, they're like, okay, I'm ready to sell. And then all of a sudden, oh, you need to do this and that. And have you thought about this and that? And they haven't, and it's a little too late. Whereas many times, if you're thinking about all this ahead of time, and that's why even having someone that kind of walks along the way with you, they can make sure you're set up for that way before, so you can actually then, when you want to sell, you're going to get more of a return on those dollars because you have some of the key elements in place and thought about it ahead of time.
Awesome. Karen, again, thank you so much for all your help and insight today. It's been really great, and I hope that people really, think about it. We know a lot of people who have life coaches, right? I mean, and getting a mentor or getting a business coach is really no different. And for so many, as Tony had mentioned, they're first-time business owners, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's a very exciting time, but you want to make sure that you have all the support in order that you need to be successful. So we would like to thank all of you for joining us on the show today with our guest, Tony Zaccario. I hope I didn't slaughter that again. You're so kind and forgiving. Of Stretch Zone, which is a magnificent brand. I can't wait to see where you guys go next. Please be sure to like, share, and comment on this episode as well as any of the others that you might watch. Thank you to Laura Liss, our franchise attorney, and thanks as always to Karen Kimsey Sword for her perspective, and thanks to Fred McMurray, Ray Pillar, and I'm Kristin Selmeczy, and together we are your resource for franchising success. This has been another episode of Pillars of Franchising, and remember, the dream starts here. Have a great week.